Hello everyone, welcome to the 7th episode of With You in Mind. My name is Lisa Upton, the founder of Brain Buddy, and I'm going to be your podcast host. Before I get started and introduce you to today's special guest, I'd like to give a big shout out to the National Brain Appeal. They're the supporting charity for the National Hospital of Neurology and Neurosurgery and the sponsors of With You in Mind. If you haven't heard of them, then please do check them out at www.nationalbrainappeal.org. The work they do is absolutely incredible in helping raise vital funds for brain research, not to mention loads of other exciting stuff too. Right, let's cue that jingle and get today's episode started. In this episode, I'm joined by special guest Chris Hallatt Wells. Chris is a patient at the National Hospital for Neurology and Neurosurgery, and in early 2023, he took the very, very brave decision to have brain surgery to remove a DNT, which was located in his right temporal lobe. This was, of course, the cause of his complex and partial epileptic seizures for many, many years. And during our chat, Chris shares with you his extraordinary journey of brain surgery, what led him to make the very brave decision, his experience of brain surgery, and of course his recovery so far. Now, it was a real pleasure to interview Chris. He's an amazing guy. He's got a lot of wisdom that he will share with you, and I think the cherry on the cake is that he's got a really, really wonderful voice that will immediately make you feel very calm and very relaxed. So enjoy it. Welcome, Chris. Thank you for joining us on the With You in Mind podcast. It's fabulous to have you here. I know we only had you on the live show in London a few weeks ago now, and we received a lot of great feedback. So it's fantastic to get this opportunity to just extract your wisdom around your journey so that we can share it with a lot more people. So welcome.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Every day I seem to be feeling a bit better at the moment. So,
because it's not been too long, has it? Just remind us of the date of your surgery again.
28th of January this year, 2023.
Yeah, I can't believe it's this year, to be honest. Like when you were on stage doing the live talk, I was like, wow, I'm not sure I could have done that like 8-9 months after my op. So kudos to you.
Well, it was interesting. You asked me to send some photographs for that. And then I hadn't looked at the photographs of me from the day I had the surgery until then. And then there was one of me having when I had the stitches taken out. And then 6 months later, on holiday with my son, and I looked a lot better, I think.
I mean, I thought you looked all right anyway, but they're great photographs. And I can't remember where you were, on top of some big mountain, weren't you, on that photo with your son at the end?
Yeah, it was, I don't think it would classify as a big mountain. It was Little Adams Peak, it's called.
Wow, pretty impressive for saying you're only a few months after surgery, nevertheless. So, Chris, obviously I know your story. I've interviewed you before, but for the purpose, for the sake of the listeners that are going to hear this podcast, can you just take us right back to beginning in terms of when the epilepsy first presented itself in your life?
Okay, it was about 2008. One morning I woke up in A&E in the Royal Free Hospital. I had no idea, how I'd ended up there, and I had just had a seizure, generalized seizure, the first one I'd ever had, and my wife had called an ambulance to take me to a hospital, and I had no recollection of it at all. It turned out after I was diagnosed that I probably had been having seizures for a long time. The type of epilepsy I had was temporal lobe epilepsy, and that has some fairly standard or typical, or it presents in a fairly typical way. And I was having creepy deja vu.
Oh, yeah, you mentioned this creepy deja vu. Talk us through that. What was that like?
Um, it was actually quite debilitating when it really hit you. I can remember going on holiday with some friends, and I just stayed in bed because it was just very, very strange. It was a very strange experience. And then as it carried on, it wasn't very exciting in that I would just be walking past someone, and then suddenly they would look like someone I thought I'd seen before. But it was something felt very, very strange, and it was quite an intense feeling. And then it would go away. So after I had my first seizure, I saw a neurologist, and as soon as I said the words creepy deja vu, he just said, "Well, this is what you've got." And then the MRIs I had were really to confirm that,
Right.
which they did. Fairly soon, I was referred to Professor John Duncan at Queen's Square, and he sent me off to the National Centre for Epilepsy in
Yeah,
Chalfont,
that's
where
right. Yeah.
he said they have the most advanced MRI machine in the UK, or it was at that time, and they found this very small tumour on my right temporal lobe, and that was my introduction to epilepsy.
Wow.
I can remember actually after we spoke, it suddenly started to come back to me that after I went to Chalfont, I received a letter saying that they had found a tumour which was called a DNT, and I took the letter with me to work, and I opened it at work, and just seeing in black and white the word brain and tumour
Mm.
in the same sentence, it was really very shocking. It subsequently turned out that a DNT is not a malignant tumour, but I didn't know that when I first saw the letter,
No, of
and
course.
it was really hard to how do you tell someone that you've got a brain tumour? My first thought was I thought brain tumours were terminal.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that would be most people's thoughts. But as we know, many of them are benign, and they present themselves well through epilepsy as a bit of a manifestation. But it must have been a shock,
Mm.
and I can imagine all of the emotions that went with that. Did you tell your family immediately, or had they been through the process with you up until this point?
I told my wife had been fully involved up to that point, but then I had to go home that evening, and I can't remember if I gave her the letter or told her. She was at work, so I just certainly didn't tell her at work. Another thing, I remember I bought a book, and started to write messages to my children
Mm.
for if I wasn't there in the
Mm.
future. Didn't write very many. I very quickly I got another appointment with Professor Duncan, and then he explained what a DNT was and how it was benign. It was just very unfortunately placed and was causing these problems, which was very reassuring. I quickly accepted the fact that you know he's a man that's very easy to trust.
Yeah, he is, isn't he?
He told me it wasn't malignant, um, and I believed him.
Yeah. But it sounds like there was a period of time from receiving the letter and seeing Professor Duncan where I can only imagine you must have been absolutely petrified.
Absolutely. I was I was working in a law firm at the time on the marketing, and I remember having to to tell people. I mean, actually, I wrote an email to my immediate boss saying, I don't know how to, I can't believe I'm writing this, but I've got a brain tumor, and I don't think you can rely on me to finish these projects.
Goodness.
And it's quite, it very quickly spread around the office. So that was, it's a surreal experience.
I can imagine. Was there a part of you that I suppose felt relieved in knowing that these weird, creepy auras and the big seizure that you'd had were because of a reason, and that was the brain tumour?
Professor Duncan explained that a DNT, in my case, it was more of a lesion, although I may have an injury, a scratch, something I'd had probably all my life, rather than as a result of banging my head. Although I had quite a large bump at some point on my head when I fell off a bicycle. And he explained that it was like, I'm going to get the phrase wrong, but a whole load of neurons, nerve endings, that were in a bundle, and suddenly they came live.
Right.
When I was in my late 30s, and it was just a thing, couldn't have been predicted, but it came live, caused those problems.
So did they think the DNT was something that you'd always had from birth, potentially, and it just came live at that age by sheer chance? Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And I suppose some people perhaps have these DNTs and never know about it if it doesn't present its way through epilepsy or anything like that.
Well, if I just carried on having these periods of deja vu, I wonder if I would ever have even gone to see a doctor about them.
Yeah. Was there ever any part of you when you were having these weird, creepy deja vus, which I suppose the clinical name is auras, isn't it, as we know now,
yes.
Or petit mal, as they're sometimes referred to? Was there any part of you that thought, this is odd? Like, what is this, I don't know, sense of familiarity I keep having? Or was it just really hard to explain to anyone?
I think I just got on with it, and then it went away, and I forgot about it.
Right.
Just just put it to the back of my mind, and it was just periodic, happened now and again, so it was quite easy to ignore.
And was there any physical symptoms that came with it, like a sense of tiredness after you had the auras, anything like that, or purely just a moment of time where you felt that sense of creepiness, familiarity?
I did. I wasn't aware of it until I was diagnosed, but when I had an aura, there was various different types, and I would get a little bit tired after an aura. I was also having minor seizures, which were more serious, where there was a visible manifestation of them, and I would feel very, very tired after those. Sometimes I wouldn't be aware that I was having those, and there's the name for them is unaware seizures. Is that right?
Yeah, that's it.
There's aware and unaware seizures.
Yeah,
and I was unaware that I was having unaware seizures until I was at a friend's house. And we were talking, I was talking, and then I suddenly felt really, really tired.
Right.
So I had to go home. And the next day I saw my friend, and he said that I'd been talking. And then suddenly I went quiet, and I was stroking my face, pulling my face. And then 2 minutes later, I just carried on from where I'd been, just carried on talking. And that was the moment I realised I was having unaware seizures. And yeah, I don't know how often
Yeah.
or how long I've been having them for.
Goodness. How soon after having your grand mal seizure, your tonic-clonic seizure, did the clinicians put you on medication, and what medication was that?
It was within a week, a couple of weeks. Initially, I went on Tegretol, and I was told that it was an old drug, but that meant that they knew, they really understood the side effects of it. And I was on that for quite a while until I saw Professor Duncan. I think after I'd been diagnosed with a DNT, and I found it very hard to function on Tegretol.
Right.
It made me sleepy. I was quite unbalanced. I can remember at work walking down this corridor and bumping into door frames.
Goodness.
Which, if I'd seen someone else doing that, I'd have thought they were drunk. After I saw Professor Duncan, he moved me on to lamotrigine.
Oh yeah.
And that worked immediately. It was much better. I felt that I could function better. My thinking was clearer. I was on quite a low dose. And something that was perhaps interesting, I was getting the GlaxoSmithKline brand of lamotrigine. It's called Lamictal.
Yeah.
And then at some point, my GP changed it to a generic brand, and it didn't. Something went wrong. I mean, I felt that it wasn't working as well. And I spoke to a friend who's a GP, and she said that these anti-epileptic drugs, they're one of the very few where you can request to stay on brand because it can have a difference.
Yeah.
And I went back onto the branded version, and it did. I didn't immediately notice a change.
Yeah,
I wasn't aware it was quite a lot more expensive for the NHS, but it did make a difference for me and allowed me to function.
Yeah, it's really interesting, that point you make. We've heard that a lot from patients, and I myself too experienced that with a change of brand. So great that you're raising the awareness around the fact that it is one of the, the group of medicines, I suppose, that you can request to stay on brand. Important for people, I think, to keep a diary, maybe in that instance where they're switching brands and things. So Tegretol, lamotrigine, did you try anything else, or was it just those two?
I took lamotrigine for several years, but then gradually it stopped working for me, and the dose was creeping up until I was taking quite a lot. And Professor Duncan suggested that I should try something else. Sorry, I can't.
No, that's okay.
That's one of the great things about my memory is still. It'll come back to me in suddenly at some point.
Okay, that's fine. So you tried a third drug, but any side effects to that one?
That was I had some immediate unpleasant side effects, and it didn't work for me. And the side effect was I would wake up with a very dry mouth in the morning, to the point where I had to peel my tongue off the roof of my mouth. It'd be stuck to the roof of my mouth.
Goodness me. It's bizarre, the effects that these medications can have on you. Yeah.
And another thing, because you need saliva to protect your teeth. So my gums started to pull away from my teeth.
Gosh.
So I came off that medication and went back to lamotrigine.
Right.
But again, over time, the seizures started to come back, auras fairly regularly, and then occasional tonic-clonic seizures, and the dosage crept up over the years, and as you increase the dosage, these anti-epileptic drugs work, as it was explained to me. They just dull down all electrical activity in your brain.
Yeah.
And I really experienced that when I forgot to take my drugs in the morning.
Right.
And then coming in the afternoon, I'd feel so much brighter.
I bet, yeah.
And things like, oh, that's what it does.
Yeah.
And so there was, I felt there was a balance that could I live with a certain number of seizures and take less drugs, or did I have to take enough drugs, dampen the seizures completely, but then have very, very slow thinking?
So that was sort of the I suppose the question you asked yourself, was it when you were presented with the opportunity to have surgery?
Yes, because and Professor Duncan explained that every time you have a seizure, you're losing a lot of neurons that aren't going to come back. So I did need to control the seizures, even if that meant increasing the dose of lamotrigine to a point where I otherwise wouldn't want to have got to. But then a few years ago, I still used to have the say one tonic-clonic seizure a year about, and then I started having a lot of auras and minor seizures. And I saw Professor Duncan, and he had years ago, possibly the first time I saw him, talk through all the different options, and said they like to start with medication. And we had a conversation about surgery, and I very clearly remember him saying that that as I got older, the benefits or the risks of surgery would increase, but to balance that, the techniques were improving. So if I waited a few years, the medical advances would may offset the disadvantages. But a few years ago, we reached the point where I couldn't take any more lamotrigine. I was taking the maximum safe dose.
Right.
I tried at that point 3 different medications, and the percentage, the chance of another medication working were very small. And at which point I was told that surgery was my best option.
Wow. So when you first heard that, potentially the option of having brain surgery, what sort of goes through your mind when you hear that?
I was really fed up at that point. I was taking a lot of medication, which was making it very hard to function, I thought. And I was still having seizures. So, I wanted to do something else. And Professor Duncan was very clear in his, as he talked me through the benefits and disadvantages or disbenefits of the risks of having surgery. And one thing he said was that there was a risk in doing nothing. And every 2 years I was running the same risk of something serious happening if I didn't have surgery as if I did have surgery. So when I heard that, it just seemed it seemed a bit of a no-brainer.
I think having it all laid out like that, and they do it so well, don't they, the neurologists and the surgeons, they present it in a way that it's, well, what we've just said, a no-brainer.
Yeah.
So did you get the opportunity to meet the surgeons before they performed the surgery on you?
Well, this was actually during COVID.
Right.
So I spoke to them over the telephone. Before I spoke to the surgeons, I had to speak to a clinical psychologist who went over the risks that Professor Duncan had talked about, and in particular the sort of psychological impact. That there was a longish list of psychological problems that you can have post surgery, and I was given the choice: do I want to proceed? And yes, I did. So then I had a telephone conversation with Dr. Anna Miserocci. And again, she went through the risks, talked me through it, and at the end, did I want to proceed? And yes, I did. And again, this was during COVID, and the next step was to have an investigation to see if this DNT was causing my epilepsy, and that took a long time to get the appointment, because you go into hospital for about a week, I think.
So this is for the telemetry, where they sort of video record you, hopefully having a seizure, so they can almost pinpoint it accurately.
Yes. Which was great. I sat in the bed for a week, read books, watched TV. Someone cooked my dinner.
Did they manage to capture anything while you were there?
They did. I had a button to press if I thought I was having a seizure, and I didn't press it very often. I didn't feel that I was having a seizure, and they explained to me that that can be quite common, because people are so relaxed when they're away from the normal life pressures, that if your seizures are triggered by stress and tiredness, in hospital, you're stressed or tired, so it doesn't happen. But they did record seizures whilst I was asleep, which was actually quite a relief, because it proved to me that I wasn't making it up. So that was actually someone saying, yes, we've captured you having a seizure. Great.
Yeah, fantastic. So you had the telemetry, they confirmed that, yes, you were having seizures. What happened next?
Nothing. There was a long wait of about a couple of years. The hospitals were closed for the type of surgery I was having, because they were using the theatres for COVID patients. I'd made a decision that I wasn't going to have the surgery whilst my children were doing their GCSEs and A-levels in the run-up to those. I thought it was unfair. They needed to be able to concentrate on what they were doing without the worry of me. And so I'd made that. I discussed that with the psychologist, and she said that was quite common. I remember her saying that a lot of teachers will schedule their operations for the summer holidays for that reason.
Yeah.
So I decided I couldn't have my operation at the earliest until September 22.
Okay.
If it was available at that time.
Okay, so not too long after that, you got the date.
Well, I suddenly realised, this sounds a bit stupid, but I suddenly realised that this might be covered under private healthcare, which I had, and I googled Anna Miserocci private practice, and it popped up that she performed this surgery at a new clinic, the Cleveland Clinic in London, which is next to the back of Buckingham Palace's garden.
Nice.
So I messaged her and asked if it would be possible to have the surgery privately, and the answer came back yes. And after that, it happened very quickly. I got the go ahead, and then there's agreeing it with your insurance company.
Do you have a decent window of being able to plan for the build up to the surgery?
I think I knew I could have the surgery in September, and then there was a process of sorting out with the insurance company, and that was quite quick. But then finding a time which the doctors performed the surgery privately, which was on a Tuesday, and then also I didn't want to have it over Christmas.
Fair enough.
I wanted to have a good Christmas with my family, and then this is ridiculous. I had tickets for a comedy show in mid-January, and I wanted to go to that as well.
Fair enough. Again.
So I found a date that worked for me and was available, and booked it. It was just all very matter of fact. I'd made the decision to have the surgery. I was happy with that. I thought it was the only way forward.
Yeah.
So got it in the diary, just worked towards that.
Amazing. And so it sounds like the decision to have surgery was very firm in your mind and something that you really wanted to go ahead with. How were your family with your decision? Was it a decision you discussed with them, or was it more of a, this is what I want to do, hopefully I've got your support kind of thing?
My wife has been incredibly supportive the whole time, and she was involved in the decision. We talked about it, but in the end, it was my decision. But also, I was advised to talk to my kids, who were 15, 17 at the time, when I decided to go forward. And that was really helpful as well. Originally, I thought I was talking to them to help them, but actually, it really helped me make the decision when I told them the advice I'd been given, and they were, oh yes, you must have this.
Really?
And I also said I wasn't going to have the surgery around the time they were taking, or before they were having their exams. And they said, oh no, you should just get on and do it straight away. Amazing. Yeah.
So they were fully behind you. Your wife was obviously very supportive. So in that respect, it sounds like it was a relatively straightforward process, like you said.
Yes, I didn't think I had an alternative. Yeah, it was a decision I'd never questioned, never had any doubts about. Having decided what I was going to do, I was happy with that decision and stuck to it.
Was there any other members of your family or friends that you engaged with about it, or was it just your immediate family?
I talked to my sister about it. She's a nurse, and I've got a very good relationship with her. We still tease each other like we were teenagers. And she was very helpful. She was good to talk to. But I decided myself that I wasn't going to tell my mother. She's in her 80s, and I thought it would upset her. And also, I didn't want to have to deal with her being upset. And my sister said that was a good idea as well. But I did tell friends, not many.
Yeah.
But the very close friends I told. Again, I didn't want to have to deal with other people's questions. Yeah.
We've all got our own way, haven't we, of navigating this, and like you say, it's a lot to go through yourself, let alone having to manage other people's emotions and and questions if they're not part of your immediate family. So yeah, it's whatever works for you.
Mm.
So talk to us about the lead up to surgery. I mean, like the day before, the days before. How was that for you, and what did you do to prepare yourself for that?
In the weeks leading up to surgery, I had another appointment with Dr. Mizrachi to talk through what the surgery would entail. And she went over the risks again. And then maybe 2 days before the surgery, I had another appointment with Dr. Mizrachi and Professor McAvoy, they both would be performing the surgery. And again, they consented me. They went through the risks to make it very clear what I should expect, what were the risks that I was taking. And they said that if I needed to back out, up to having the anaesthetic, I could. But I was quite surprised. They said that some people do. Very recently, they'd had someone who just suddenly, at the last minute, changed their mind, which seemed very unfair to me. That you've got this team of highly qualified people, and they're all ready to go, and they can't fill that slot at the last minute. Which maybe that just helped made me think about, was this something I wanted to go ahead with? And yes, I absolutely did. And then I think the day before I went into hospital for the surgery, so 2 days before the surgery, I had to go in for an MRI. So I got to know my way around the hospital a little bit. And then the day of the surgery, I can remember it was very important for me just to take myself there. I just wanted to get up, go in by myself, and that's what I did.
So you made the journey from home in London. Did you take the tube to the hospital on your own?
I got the tube. I got the tube to Green Park and walked across Green Park to the hospital. I wanted to see a bit of greenery before I went in. And for me, that was the right decision, because no one was around me to get upset, and I could just deal with it the way I needed to deal with it, just inside my head, just coming to terms with it.
Yeah, I think it's really important. And again, everyone's really different, aren't they? But having that time to be introspective and just have that, I don't know, time on your own to really lean into what it is you're about to embark on, I think is hugely important for anyone, really.
Absolutely.
So you arrived at the hospital?
Arrived at the hospital. I did the admin, filling in forms, putting on a gown, getting into bed. And I remember my wife came in to see me that evening, and she spent a couple of hours with me, and then she had to go home to get on with things, and I had no trouble falling asleep. I just, I wasn't worried. Fell asleep, woke up in the morning. I think my wife had arrived early. They came in and did whatever checks they need to do, and then said goodbye to Lucille, and then wheeled down to theatre.
Was there ever a part of you on the way down to theatre, because I remember that journey so well, that thought, am I doing the right thing? Or were you hell-bent on doing this?
I was totally committed to having it to that point. I just wanted to get on with it.
Yeah.
I'd had enough of the restrictions. I'd had to give up so many things I enjoyed doing,
Mm.
cycling, swimming, and I realised I'd missed so many events
Mm.
because I was feeling ill, I was too tired, and I just had enough of that. So I was totally ready to have the surgery. I'd thought it through in my head. Just get on with it.
So your
I had
motivation.
confidence in
Yeah.
confidence in the doctors I was seeing, which helps.
Of course. It sounds very much like your motivation was to ultimately get your life back, I guess.
Yes, and I should say, as that, having met Dr. Ms. Mizrachi, and Professor McAvoy at Queen Square, I really did feel that I was going to get the best treatment that was available in the UK. And if you're getting the best treatment in the UK, you're probably getting the best that's available anywhere.
Mm.
So I was very confident that I had a very competent team of doctors looking after me.
Amazing. So you get into theatre. What happens next?
A bit hazy at that point. I mean, they must have given me an anaesthetic, and straight out. I was, hold on, go back. I met the surgeons that morning, and they consented me again.
Yeah, they like to do that, don't they?
I was given a last chance to back out. And then I was taken down to theatre, given an anaesthetic, and the next thing I know, I was coming to.
Do you remember how long your surgery took?
It was 8 hours for 2 surgeons inside my head. One of the things the surgeons had told me was that where the tumor was in my brain, it was very small, but it was quite deep, and until they got into my brain, they wouldn't know how easy it was to get to that tumor, to remove it.
Mm.
And one of the issues is that, to me, I imagine my brain is a bit like a cauliflower made up of bits. And Dr. Mizrachi said these bits can be, sometimes they're sticky, sometimes they come apart. She said they would need to go through my hippocampus to make space to get to the tumor, and how much they would need to take out would depend on how sticky my brain was, how easy it came apart. Jumping forwards a bit, one of the first meeting I had with Dr. Mizrachi afterwards, she told me I had a very unsticky brain, and it had come apart very easily, and they hadn't needed to remove any of my hippocampus at all.
Amazing.
So they'd just been able to target this one small piece. I was very lucky that in the hospital I went to, because at the time it was the only hospital in the UK doing neurosurgery where they had an MRI next to the theatre. So they would do the operation, and then before they closed, they would take you into the MRI, still anaesthetised, and do a scan to see if they'd got everything. And at some point, they noticed that there was something else there, so they took that out as well. That was like a cavity in my skull, and the brain was poking into that, bulging into it, and that can cause a problem as well. So they removed that. So it was a slightly longer and more complicated surgery, but from their perspective, not very.
So you woke up 8 hours later, having had your surgery?
It was very strange. I woke up and I was immediately wide awake.
Okay, so
And
talk us through that then. What do you mean?
one of the one of the risks of the operation, if it didn't go perfectly, was just because of the location of the tumor. It was close to the optic nerve.
Yeah.
And so one of the percentage-wise, the most likely bad outcome would be damage to my eyesight, where I wouldn't be able to see in the top outside quadrant of my eyes.
Mm.
If that happened, I wouldn't be able to drive. It'd be difficult to ride a bike, that sort of thing. And the very first thing I did when I woke up was I looked up and I could see. I had that peripheral vision, and it's like, yeah, it worked.
Amazing.
So immediately I was I was like, wow, if that worked, what else has worked?
Yeah. What the powers have we got now?
And I felt fantastic.
Did you?
I felt absolutely buzzing. So one of the first thing someone said to me when I came round that I remember, I'm sure maybe they said, I'm sure other things, other questions were asked, but a nurse asked me, was there someone waiting to see me?
Yeah.
And I said, yes, my wife is in reception. And the nurse said, well, what does she look like? And I still don't think I got sufficient credit for this. And it was just the first thing that came into my head. I said, she's quite small, she's very pretty, and she's got really good hair.
Brilliant.
Which is obviously what I think.
I mean, I've met her. She's got great hair.
Although she does say they came out and didn't spot her.
But they found her, right?
They did find her. I think she may even have come in, not into the theatre, but in the post-operative room. Is that?
Yeah, in the ICU.
Yeah, and it's a little blurry at that point, but apparently I was just chatting away, talking rubbish, couldn't shut me up. And then I did get quite a bad headache, and I was quite looking forward to getting some morphine.
You spent the night in ICU, and then was it the next day that you were taken up to the ward?
It was, but just because it's a bit of a silly story, they wheeled me into ICU, and I wasn't expecting this, and they asked me what I wanted to eat, and I ordered roast chicken and potatoes, and roast potatoes, and and carrots and cauliflower and crumble and custard. I was absolutely starving. So it was one of the, after I realised I could see and I wasn't dead, the next thing in my mind,
what am I going to eat?
Really hungry.
I mean, basic human needs, right? Where's my
Absolutely.
food? Did you finish it all?
Well, I did, but what I hadn't factored in is that they had cut through some of the muscles on my jaw, and I couldn't open my mouth. It was really painful to open my mouth, and I could only open it a little bit, and so getting the food into my mouth just hurt. But I persevered. Once got it in, I could chew. So that was
soup might have been a better option.
Well, flat food, pizza would have been great. Something you could just post in.
Yeah. Oh, I've got visions of you just chomping on this chicken and trying to get through it. Limited jaw.
It just made me laugh. It was just, ridiculous that I just had 8 hours of brain surgery and I was complaining about struggling to chew.
That's brilliant. So then up to the ward. Obviously, you'd seen your wife already. Had you seen your children at this point?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. My son came in, and my wife told me she was going to take some photographs of me to remember what was going on. So in the future, I'd have a record of what was going on. So every day she was taking photographs, which was interesting. When she was right, it was interesting later when I saw them.
Yeah, I bet.
So I had a very, very uncomfortable night in ICU because you've got so many wires and drains in you, and it's just getting comfortable is hard. You can't lie on your side; you've got to lie on your back. And then every time you get comfortable and start to fall asleep, someone comes in and takes your blood pressure and your temperature. They take your temperature to see whether you've got whether you picked up an infection. But that just wakes you up. And I was so tired the next morning. I couldn't wait to get up to the ward. And at that point, my daughter arrived. She'd come by herself, and so it was so lovely to see her.
Oh, I bet it was. I bet it was.
Oh, but this is another silly story. Someone I don't know very well, a friend of my wife's, blagged her way into ICU. She was one of the first people to see me in ICU. She just confident said she'd come to see me, and they just, oh, okay, show her in.
Wow. She managed to get through.
She did, straight through.
I bet that was a surprise.
Well, it was a big surprise when I heard about it.
You don't remember it?
I don't remember. I wish I could remember that. That would have been a very bizarre.
It would, wouldn't it?
Because I didn't know this person very well either.
Oh,
I had dinner with them a couple of times.
Yeah. I mean, it might have freaked you out a bit, to be honest, if you hadn't remembered it. So the days, that the first few days, having gone through this, what is, a hugely traumatic experience on the brain, how did you feel physically and emotionally?
I was on a real high. I had, I seemed to have dodged the bullets. So my eyesight was fine. I felt absolutely great. I felt so wide awake, and my brain seemed to be functioning so much faster that I was thinking of things, and I was chatting away. Just people couldn't shut me up. I was so happy. But the only problem was I was incredibly tired. It's really hard to get comfortable. I had a drain in my head, and I just couldn't get comfortable in bed. So I was very glad when they started taking off the various bits of a kit that were attached to me that made it easier to move around. And the day after my operation, it doesn't sound like a very big step, but I got up and went to the loo.
Amazing.
Which it did. I got up and I walked there myself, which I'm not sure what I was expecting, how capable I would be, but it was something straight away that I could do.
Do you remember how long you were in hospital for?
About a week.
Yeah, when you left, what sort of stage physically were you at? Were you able to walk out of the hospital? Did you still have a bandage on your head? What was going on physically at that point after a week?
I had a large, a lot of padding on the side of my head. looked a bit like a sanitary towel, I think. And I was very keen to go back on public transport. Actually, I quite wanted to walk across Green Park and take the
Of course you
tube
did.
again. My wife said, "Don't be ridiculous," and we got a taxi.
Yeah.
And then we got home, and I was sent straight to bed, which is where I stayed for another couple of weeks, sleeping a lot of the time.
Sure. What was the first moment that you thought, this has worked, the epilepsy has gone?
One of the conversations I had with the surgeons was, how would they know it worked? And it was a question of waiting. But if the surgery worked, it worked straight away.
Mm.
So as soon as they took the DNT out, if that was the cause of the problem, I was fixed. But I would have to wait 12 months to be certain that it had worked. And the reason for that was that you can have a seizure just from the trauma of brain surgery. Even if the operation has worked, you can still have a seizure as your brain just recovers.
Yeah.
So I felt that it had worked. I was absolutely confident that it had worked. When I was in ICU, I felt so great, so wide awake, that I was immediately convinced that I was cured. That was the end of it for me. That the seizures had ended. But I still had to take the medication.
Of course, of course. And so how have you been since having the surgery with the epilepsy?
I was on a real high immediately after the surgery, and that went on for several months. And I wasn't having any auras. But immediately before the surgery, I was having multiple, in the months leading up to the surgery, I was having auras very, very regularly, several a day. And they had just completely stopped, which again made me more convinced that the surgery had worked, because there had been just a constant thing that was going on, and they'd stopped. Plus, I was thinking so much more clearly, even though I was taking a very large dose of medication.
Mm.
So I was truly convinced straight away that it had worked.
I suppose it's interesting, isn't it? You describe that elation you feel after the operation. I wonder how much of that is, the belief that something that you carried with you for so long has now potentially gone.
Yeah. And there's also something that you told me that the surgeons hadn't mentioned, that there's a theory that having cold air on your brain, so which is, I've suddenly realised after you told me this, that it's something that's talked about in his Dark Materials, trepanning.
Trepanning, yes, it's a thing. We definitely wouldn't recommend this to anyone listening now.
Yes.
All sorts of theories. I think it's really interesting, though, how you just sense that there was a different feeling, it sounds like, that you had after the surgery, a sense that, it had gone. And it, we know with epilepsy, it does dull down your brain, doesn't it? It does make us a little bit slower, a little bit more tired. And it sounds very much like that feeling had gone almost instantly.
Yes. Well, after I was having a lot of auras, and after I had an aura, I was very tired. And then suddenly I wasn't having auras. So that as a cause of tiredness had ended.
Mm.
I still did feel very tired, but it was a different type of tiredness.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so you're what, 9 months on from your surgery back in January. Have you had any seizures since?
I had one seizure in June that was a big surprise. That was quite difficult because I was so convinced that I was fixed, and then to suddenly have a seizure. But I got in touch with my neurologist, and I think I was so convinced that I was fixed, I was being less sensible than I should have been. I wasn't. The phrase, I just felt I was bulletproof. So I'd been out, I'd got tired, I had forgotten to take my medication on time, so I took it much later than I usually do, and also I'd gone back to exercising, and I was training quite hard, and the neurologist said, this is probably caused by the trauma of the surgery, and triggered by not being by not taking the medication on time and just pushing myself too hard. So don't worry about it now. We wait for 12 months before we give a prognosis. So, but it still does affect your. I was on such a high until that point, and then it was hard immediately afterwards. That feeling of total elation, I remember, disappeared quite quickly. And then it took a while for my mood to lift again.
Yeah, I can imagine. It makes total sense what they say, because I think we come out of brain surgery, in your words, and we feel almost bulletproof, and we just want to live, don't we? Just live our lives and squeeze every ounce of it out. And to have a setback like that, of course it's going to knock you, but it kind of makes sense that it's trauma related rather than epilepsy. But lessons, I suppose, in taking it easy, slowing down, and just giving your body and your mind that time to heal.
Yes, I mean, in retrospect, I should have been more patient in taking the time to get better, which was the advice that I'd been given. I should have slept more. I should have not exercised quite so hard and just got on. I should just have taken longer to recover.
Would that be the advice you'd give to other people that are potentially going through this?
Absolutely. And another thing, I was told this, but I didn't really take it on board, that the recovery isn't linear. It's not just a straight line of getting better the whole way. It can go up and down. And the setback I had in June was something that was always a possibility. And I think if I had been more aware of that and really thought about it in advance, that it would have been easier to accept at the time that it happened. So I think something to be aware of is that there may be setbacks, but they are things to be prepared for, but they don't mean necessarily that the surgery hasn't worked.
No, quite.
They're just mentally. I think I could have been more mentally prepared for those setbacks, for a setback, and then it would have been easier to accept and deal with. Yeah,
of course. I mean, it's great, isn't it, having a positive mental attitude towards, well, these things, these massive things. Of course it is, but sometimes it doesn't allow much space for reality, or the reality of what might happen to take a part in that.
Yeah. After I had this setback, I didn't really talk about it with anyone. I talked about it with my family and immediate family and friends knew. But it's actually when I first spoke with you, that made a huge difference. Talking to someone who'd been through the same process really helped. So that's another piece of advice would be to speak to other people who've been through the same experience. I'm not someone who usually feels comfortable talking about myself, but it did really help speaking with you. So thank you very much.
It's a pleasure. It's, the main reason why I set BrainBuddy up, really, to create that safe space for people to connect, because it's a very lonely process and it's a very unique process going through brain surgery. Not many people do it. So I think there's definitely value in speaking to people who have, because, you can get some great advice. And
at that presentation, I think Professor Duncan said there was only something like 3,000 people that had this particular type of surgery in the last decade or so, which I was amazed it was such a small number of people.
Yeah, it is. It's tiny. We're quite a unique club, aren't we? Part of. We need badges or something, I think. Tattoos, maybe. Is there anything else you'd like to say to people who are about to embark on this journey or have just embarked on this journey?
A few things. Firstly, really come to terms with your decision, so you're comfortable with it. And for me, there were two parts to that, which was choosing for me to have the operation, which was easy because I felt I didn't have any, I didn't have an alternative. But also talking to my immediate family to get them comfortable with the idea and getting them involved in it. So I wasn't sure how my children were going to take it. And when I explained the risk to them, and I think it was my son, he told me that if I was going to have a stroke, the best place to have a stroke was whilst I was in hospital, in a theatre, when there'd be people there to deal with it. I was like, yeah, you're right about that. So he was, that was a great piece of advice from him. Also, order flat food for your first meal.
Not chicken.
And also, don't get excited about morphine. Having not had anything to drink for 16 years, I was actually looking forward. I was looking forward to getting to getting morphine, but the type I had, it was not as advertised. I thought from watching films you'd have morphine and you'd just feel fantastic, but whatever I had, it wasn't the good stuff, and it also has this terrible side effect which they hadn't warned me about, which is morphine makes you incredibly constipated. And when you've had brain surgery, you can't try very hard, and you're not allowed out of hospital until you've been. So you're desperate to get out, but you can't. So in advance of surgery and immediately afterwards, eat a lot of fibre, and then also be prepared for ups and downs. Don't rush your recovery, which I think I probably did in retrospect. Take it easy. Listen to what the doctors say. They've been doing this for quite a long time. They know what they're talking about.
Amazing. Well, listen, Chris, you've been great. You've been absolutely great. You've told your story so articulately and just so well in terms of covering off every aspect. I think that people would really like to know and benefit from. So a huge thank you from me.
And thank you very much, Lisa. Thank you for originally getting in touch with me. You're the first person had been through the same experience as me, and it really helped me talking to you.
It's a pleasure.
Oh, it was so nice to chat with Chris during that talk. I hope that you all found it really valuable. I know that I did. So thank you to Chris again for joining us on With You in Mind. And for all of you as well for joining us. If you would like to keep updated on all of our latest podcasts, then please do give us a follow on our Instagram and Facebook social media accounts, where you will find all of the upcoming talks, webinars and events that are happening. Thank you and see you next time.